Hello, and welcome to the Book Tribe podcast, where we delve into the minds of experienced authors and experts who've cracked the code on mastering the writing process, engaging readers, and navigating the ever evolving publishing landscape with expert tips on making marketing work, building a thriving author platform, and turning your passion into profit. Today, I am joined by Melissa, creator of The Literary Assistant, where she offers marketing and mindset help to authors. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited to talk about marketing and mindset. I'm super passionate about it, and thank you.
Yeah, I'm honestly very excited as well. I think we're going to get a lot out of today's session. But to begin with, as we do with all of our guests, we're just going to start with some quick fire bookish questions. Are you ready?
I will do my best.
There is no pressure at all. But the first question is, what's your book-related pet peeve? So for me, I don't like starting unfinished series. If I find out that it's not the last book in the series, I just scream. So what's your book-related pet peeve?
Mine is more to do with the physical book itself. So I can't stand when the cover doesn't match the genre. So I think we see, I get tired, like everybody else, of very trendy, genre sort of things. But when I pick up a book because I see it laying there and then it's totally not what I expected, it's a big pet peeve of mine.
I totally get that. Yeah. And in fact, one of our other guests is talking about book cover design. So everyone listen out for that one. So the second question is, how would you describe your reading personality? So for me, I'm 100% a mood reader.
Absolutely. I am total mood reader. I have masses of books because I never know what mood I'm going to be in. Thankfully, the library does not have late fees anymore because I have a stack of books because I just oh, that sounded good today. And then a week later, totally don't want to pick that up. So definitely my mood, but I do stick mostly with certain genres. So it's going to be romance, it's going to be cozy mystery, it's going to be historical fiction, a little bit of nonfiction mixed in.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% romance. It's a real problem. I can't. I'm literally obsessed, and it's a very unhealthy obsession. Right, the last question is, do you have a favorite bookstore or library, and why?
My local library here probably has to be my favorite library place just because I go there to work. It makes me feel happy to be surrounded by books while I'm working, and I can just find it it's so relaxing and the quiet. My son and I were there the other day. We were both on our laptops and he was like, "It's too quiet." And I was like, "No, it's perfect." So that's my favorite library. Bookstore would probably be Barnes and Noble. I know it's not an indie bookstore, but it's the last of the great chain bookstores that we have here in the US, and it's the only place I feel like you can go into and kind of know what you're going to see. So I like that familiarity of it. That would have to be my pick.
Yeah, no, I think for me there's a new bookstore that's literally just opened in the town next to me, and it is so cute. I've managed not to go in every weekend, but it is very, very tempting. Well, thank you, Melissa. Some really great answers there, and hopefully, you feel like you've warmed up and ready for
I'm ready.
next phase, which is talking about marketing and mindset. But let's just learn a little bit more about you and your background. What led you to where you are today, helping authors with marketing and mindset?
So the book nerdiness really began when I was little. I mean, I had loads of books in my room. My mom would always take us to library used book sales, and we'd come home with boxes filling the trunk. And I even sat down one summer and did the Dewey Decimal System of all the books in my room with tape and papers because I was so obsessed with having them organized. And I've just always had a passion for reading. I became an adult. You need a job. And I studied history and English in college, but then ended up going into marketing because why not marketing? But I really did fall in love with being able to connect with people and talk with them and finding a way to, I loved connecting different businesses with each other in ways that would help each other and just that community sense. And this is, of course, like pre-social media, but just getting to talk to people one-on-one. I loved that aspect and like finding what was going to resonate with somebody that would make them want to purchase this business, come onto this business. Like cracking that code was really satisfying for me. Then I turned into mom phase and kind of stepped away from work a little bit. And then Bookstagram happened. And I jumped right onto Bookstagram and was meeting all these authors and connecting with them and just having a lot of fun. And one day when one was like, well, hey, I could use some help. Are you interested? And that little seed turned into launching the literary assistant and using the past skills that I had to really connect authors and help them find their true selves, connect and build a community on social media, and also get to use the creative side of my brain as well, with doing graphics and videos and all that sort of stuff. And it just kind of ticks all the boxes for me.
Yeah, no, it's funny how we can start off thinking that we're going to do one thing and then just fall into something completely different. I actually started out acting. I did an acting degree and graduated, and now I'm marketing, I'm running businesses. So very different. Um, but yeah, and what would you say, some of the biggest trends that you're seeing at the moment in terms of author marketing and branding?
I really think we're seeing a shift as we go into this new era of the internet and all these apps that we have, where it's important to build a community of your readers because there are so many books that are getting published. Like if you look at the amount on Amazon now, it's just astronomical. So really making yourself stand out from the crowd of books is important. So you need to have a strong sense of yourself to start with and who you're presenting to people, and then really building your community, your tribe around that, and using that to keep your readers connected. Because even with myself, I'll read a book maybe in KU and like, oh, that was a really great book. And then I completely forgot because I have like 20 romance books later and I forgot who it was. And I might have stayed committed to that author had I had some connection. So I think of some of the people that I might not even have read their books, but because they have such a great community presence on social media, I can see them and connect a few pieces of who they are. Like, oh, like just like there's Julia, a romance author. She writes paranormal. She has a cat named Tilly. Like I feel like I know her in real life because I remember her cat's name. You know, another person might resonate because I remember that they collect a certain type of art. Like these little things that make it feel like it's your bookish friend in real life, even though you're probably never going to meet that person. That's what I think is the new wave that we're going to see with authors connecting with readers.
Yeah, there's a couple things come out of that for me. One of them being, people don't want to be sold to. Like, they don't want to just follow an author just to be, bombarded with, buy my book.
Exactly.
But there's that, as you say, that personal element. And the second piece of it was actually, it's also the audience that you have on social media. I can imagine, even for myself, I didn't realize that Bookstagram was a thing until it started popping up because, Siri was listening to me. But I think also, the people that are on Bookstagram are probably more than likely not big readers. They consume so many, and as you say, I've read books and I can't even remember the title, but I remember the story.
Right. And that's why you can also, as an author, build a community of other authors, because generally, even if you're rapid releasing, you're an indie author, you might be releasing every 2 to 3 months is like really pushing it. That would be rapid releasing. Traditional publishing, we see like one book a year. There's people reading a book a day. You cannot keep up with that. So in your own best interest to keep a community of other authors that you're promoting and sharing the love with them as well is only going to help make you stronger. instead of just hoarding this little corner all to yourself of, as you said, buy my books, buy my books. Well, I bought the book and now I have to wait another year. I'm going to read a lot of other books in between them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love this emphasis on community. I just wanted to kind of, though, talk about the mistakes that authors are making. And because we've kind of touched on one, which is, just trying to sell and, touch all of the readers on social media as they possibly can. But what do you think are the mistakes that authors are making pretty much all the time?
I see one of the biggest mistakes is not starting to self-promote, build your own brand on social media until you have the book ready to release. You need to be starting, you can start years ahead of time of building your community, of cultivating these relationships so that by the time you are ready for the ask because you have a book to publish, you've already established that they're an immediate yes. I want to support it. It's more about engaging for support. And then the book is like, yes, I want to read that book, because there's people I buy from sometimes that I don't even read the book. I'll buy it and then put it in my little free library or give it to a friend as a gift, but I want to support them as an author. So if you can take the time ahead and be building that, and then as life happens and you're not perfect and you're not posting all the time and you maybe drop off for a month, you've still invested that time up front of building the community. But people will come to me and be like, I decided I want to get on social media now and my book is releasing in a month. Like, what do I do? I'm like, this is not enough time. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think not treating yourself as a business is so detrimental. Like, think about how a business operates. They don't just open the doors and say, we're launching today. Like, you're building up ahead of time. You're letting people know that you're out there. You're letting them know what you're working on. You see coming soon, like, let's start getting out in the community of people. So I think that's one of the biggest things. And then the second biggest thing is not starting a newsletter. I'll have authors come to me that have been publishing for a few years, and then they're like, I was really hesitant. I didn't think I needed it. And then my TikTok account got shut down, or my Instagram account I got locked out of Facebook. I was hacked. And like, you have no way to build that back up again. So I always preach, like, to me, let even social media go if you have to, and keep your newsletter going and consistent. And it's such an easy piece because you can be gaining subscribers in your sleep when we set it up properly. It's not as difficult as people make it out to be. And I think that ties into the mindset of, like, knowing who you are, knowing what you're giving to people to build a good newsletter. So crucial, start your social media presence and your newsletter before you publish the book.
Yeah, and so what do you think kind of authors need to be doing, or no, this is not the right way to ask the question. The question I want to ask is, when it comes to newsletters, what are the things that authors need to be doing to make it a successful piece of their kind of marketing strategy?
Yeah, I could nerd out over newsletters. That is my happy place.
Do it.
Here's really the bare bones of what you need to be doing. So first of all, this is going to be your initial first impression that a lot of people get from you. So if you're signed up for BookFunnel, or you have it on your website, or if it's linked to your social media, I've had people say to me, and I just cringe, like, oh, I can write something really fast and have it ready to go. Like, no, this is your first impression that people are going to see of your writing. This needs to be, like, edited. We need to make this as perfect as possible, and the cover needs to be great. It's not expensive to do. It's your time of writing. Like, write a really strong novella. Some people like to give away a book at the beginning to lead people in, but if you're maybe writing a series, this is a great way to let that shine and pull people into the series itself, so they're getting comfortable with what worlds you're building, or if it's historical romance, like the setting that you're going to have, is this going to be clean, is it going to be steamy? Like, this tells me who you are as an author. So putting that out there to be growing your newsletter is like, it's so, I feel like it's so easy because you write that one story. And I have authors, I have one we built, and she writes fan fiction. So this is like very niche. Um, and in the last 2 years, she's grown to 6,000 subscribers, and her open rate is at 60%, which is like
Unheard of.
really unheard of. And especially for fan fiction. But we create a sense of community within her newsletters where we're doing polls asking people like what she'll ask them, like what sort of tropes would you like to see in the next book? Are you interested in this or this? So she can kind of be writing to her market, and people are invested because they're excited to see what comes of it. They feel like they had a say in what's released. It makes them feel like they're a part of it, the community sense again. And so I think that's probably the biggest piece that I see people miss. They kind of just like word dump and write newsletters, and you always need to be thinking, what is in it for my reader? Like, what are they getting out of this? Because there's so much landing in your inbox now. So what are you sending them that's going to make them say, I want to spend the 2 minutes to open this and read it? So I always tell people, like, there's a fantastic book by Gary Vaynerchuk. It's called like Jab, 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 Right Hook, I think. And in that book, he talks about, giving, 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 and then the ask. So the newsletters, like we're curating maybe had one, she writes World War I historical fiction. So it would almost create like mini museum tours. I would find like YouTube videos, talks about different things, really like things that cater to her audience. And then after about, 4 or 5 newsletters, then, oh, we have a sale on this book. Oh, we have a pre-order, or we have a release coming up. So it's the value before the ask.
100%. Honestly, it is just, I've said this previously, but day to day, I earn my living from marketing. And so hearing you say the words, give some value before you ask for it back, is just music to my ears, because the thing is, even businesses don't get this right. $100 billion turnover businesses still don't get this right. So I completely understand where you're coming from with actually newsletters are just as much, if not more, of an important piece of your marketing strategy than social media. And I think we always get so fixed. I don't know why. Maybe it's because it's always in front of us, but we always get so fixed on those vanity metrics that actually how much do those really matter?
And I always find it funny because authors will be struggling on social media, and I'm like, literally writing is your thing. Like, newsletters should be your happy place, but so many of them are so resistant of, a lot of times it's, I don't know what to write, or they say, one of the mindset things I hear frequently is, I don't have anything interesting to say. Everyone has something interesting about them. So that's when we're kind of like step back, and I'll take sometimes an hour with people, and we'll have a session and just go through like, what are your hobbies? What are the things you like? And then by the end, like, their confidence is normally there. Like, oh, I do have things about myself that are interesting that would connect with other people. And then that lets you know what you're going to be sharing and connecting with the community.
Yeah, no, everything goes back to the community. And in terms of kind of setting themselves up for success, say they're kind of at the beginning of this journey, or writing a book or in the process of, what things, maybe it's like 3 things, what things should they be doing to kind of build their likelihood for success?
So the very first thing I would say is have your elevator pitch down for either your book or your genre, because everything's going to be built around that. So maybe it's like, I write happily ever afters with hot hunky men, like whatever it is. But like, you can nail that, and you know exactly what you're writing, and that tagline that you're going to put in your social media bios. So as soon as people land on it, like, they know who you are and what to expect from your book. So frequently I see people missing that part of it. So take some time and know who you are. And if somebody, passes you on the street and was to say, oh, you're a writer, what do you write? Bam, like this is what I write. So work on that first. And the next thing that will make your life so much easier, it makes my job easier, social media assistance for people, is know your branding. So your fonts, your colors, have some templates set up for yourself if things are getting super busy so that you can keep your feed. It doesn't have to be perfectly curated, but at least people can kind of see it and they know it, is coming from you. There's great resources on Pinterest that you can search, and it will give you, the colors right there if you're not great with figuring out the colors that you want. And make sure, talking back to covers, make sure your genre matches the colors and the aesthetics that you want to be presenting. So if you're doing like fantasy, you're probably not going to have pastel colors. You're going to be like dark and moody colors. If you're writing sweet romance, you're probably not going to have like deep royal colors for your fonts and your branding scheme that you have going on. So be intentional about that. Take the time up front because it will make it easier than when you get down the road. And also create a logo at this point. It can always change down the road, but it's just great to be able to kind of leave a watermark on your stuff so that in the hopes that people start sharing, it's also just a quick way for them to identify that it's you. I think that was 2. So third one would be start a newsletter. Like I cannot say that strongly enough. Like a great reason to start it early. And another piece of that is you'll need your branding for when you start your newsletter to create your heading and make sure everything looks the same. But it kind of takes away the fear factor when people are starting out because I'm like, literally no one is reading this. So like create drafts and write 3 or 4 that you don't even send out just to get yourself familiar with the style that you want to become you. Follow some other people, see what versions, because there's a lot of variety within it, what's out there, and then start finding your own voice within it. And it's okay to change as you go. But if you start out before anybody is really there, it gives you the freedom to not feel like, oh my goodness, thousands of people are going to see this.
Yeah, no, and I think it's completely valid, the conversation around, if you're a paranormal romance writer, then perhaps pink and fluffy is not the right way to go. And just taking that time to just decide, and once you've decided, there's no problem going back. But the one thing I'd probably add to that is just, with marketing campaigns, you need to give yourself time to see how that performs, not to just be like, oh, it's been 2 weeks and it's, I've not got the results that I've had. But actually, there is a process of seeing whether something works over 3 months.
I was just going to say about 90 days to kind of see if it's resonating, because it takes time within the algorithm for people to see it, to start reacting to it. And just another quick tip, I had this happen to somebody. They started focusing all their branding around their covers, which is fine if you're thinking really short-sighted, but in hopes that you'll be publishing multiple series, and that cover is not going to be your aesthetic for the rest of your writing career. So think a little more on a bigger scale, I guess would be the best way to put it, of just the genre in general, not off of a book that you're publishing.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. That makes sense. So when it comes to we've spoken about developing the brand based off of genre, but why is it exactly so important for an author to have a brand, and what impact will it have if they don't have a brand?
I think branding not only makes it easy for readers to connect with you, it helps you as the author. So a lot of times when clients come to me and their social media has been really scattered and they're like feeling frustrated and they don't know what to post, it's because they haven't stopped to figure out who they are as a brand. And you should be so confident with your branding that you could give it to an assistant and somebody else can be your ghostwriter, like, and create that same thing for you. Like, within a business, when you have multiple people running your marketing departments and stuff, everyone can create content for that brand because what the brand's ethos is, what their color, their font, like everything is already spelled out for you. So that's part of the mindset, is figure out who you are, who you want to present to the world. And then all those pieces really fall into place. Like when I work for clients and I can just like pick up so quickly on, oh, you are like teacups and Anna Green Gables quotes and, classic lit. And that's your people. And that's the vibe that we're bringing. And it's no problem to start creating that content. But when people are really scattered and like, okay, you write fantasy, but like you also released romance and then you dabbled in paranormal, and like, how do we put this whole thing together? Like, be good at the one thing. Like Nike with shoes, like that's what Nike did a great job at with shoes. Like eventually they went on to other stuff. So as an author, you might dabble in other genres later after you've like built your core audience, and that's okay. But like, know who you are and then do that really well.
Yeah, no, as like with any business, if you can do one thing well and just keep doing it over and over again, then that's your business pretty much, sorted, and you can branch out into other things if you want to. But yeah, no, I think that's great advice. And so I suppose as well that social media, we've spoken a lot about social media, but it's not the only thing that authors can be doing. And I suppose that depends on who their ideal or audience or reader is. So how can authors go about discovering who that ideal reader is and then tailor their approach accordingly?
Yeah, and it also varies on the author themselves too, because I always tell people like, you should never, for your own mental health, force yourself into a platform that is not the right fit for you. So, if you don't like being in front of a camera and it's going to send you on a downward spiral, don't do it. Like, there's other ways that you can expand your business and really grow. You don't need to do things to the detriment of your own mental well-being. So first kind of figure out that and where you really resonate. And then, so find how to figure out your target reader is, I think one part of it is connecting with people who are like you, because you're not going to have burnout if you are being yourself. If you're trying to like create this persona when you go on social media, it gets tiring, and it can be someone that's on social media all the time for other people. Like, it takes a lot of creative energy to do that, and I love it. And still there's some days where you're like, I don't know if I have any creativity left in me. But if it's things like this, or like passion projects that I have, I could sit and talk to you all day long and not run out of things to say. So sit down, take the time, figure out what it is about you that you want to connect with people. And then take a look at the genre as a whole, and what do you kind of see the not just stereotype people, but we have certain demographics that are going to probably be reading romance, who's probably going to be reading sci-fi. Start taking that into consideration, because you're going to do yourself a disservice if you're writing sci-fi and you're pitching it to middle graders. Like, it's not going to work. Or like you're the 90-year-old lady that's probably not reading the newest horror genres. Like, make it kind of match up to, like, in general, who you see reading. So pay attention to that on social media. Who are other people connecting with? You can access a lot of information just by Googling searches, like who is buying it. You'll see, if you start running ads, like who are the main demographics, and you can be taking information from there to figure out who you want to be trying to targeting. But I think the biggest piece is like find yourself and find your people, because I believe that there's always people like you out there that you're going to connect with.
Absolutely, yeah. And um I guess my next question is a little more around the community, because those readers are in different groups of interest, and but how do they are there opportunities for them to collaborate with communities, perhaps book clubs, and are there some really interesting things that they can be doing that are different to just kind of them doing their own social media?
For authors to be like community building, or for the readers? For authors,
So for authors, yes. So for authors, surely there's more opportunity to market and connect with their readers through communities that already exist, like book clubs is sort of where I'm
yeah,
heading with
I,
that one.
I mean, Facebook is kind of the OG place for that. There's so many groups that are great and already running and let you do takeovers. Just be selective, I would say, at this point, as to like look and see. A lot of times people say like, oh, I got invited to do a takeover in this, and then I'll go and take a look at it for them, and it's like they've had one person liking their posts for the last 6 months, and that person is the owner of the group, even though they have 5,000 people in the group itself. So because there's been so many shifts in social media, so just be selective about where you're going. I think doing lives on a lot of other platforms is a great way to connect, because you can have other authors joining in, and be kind of helping to promote each other at different times, and yet still connecting with readers. And then even on the newsletter platforms, I'll schedule like takeovers for different authors, so you can hop on over into somebody's newsletter and show up in there. Or maybe you're giving that a free short story to their audience, and that's their way that you're introducing them to yourself. So I find most authors are open to collaborating and sharing each other's spaces, and really great at boosting each other up.
Yeah, it sounds like there's some really creative ways to tap into those other communities and places where you might not be able to reach just by yourself, but those
Yeah.
collaborations and those opportunities are there for you to do that.
Probably the
um
easiest way for someone starting out would be Book Funnel, because they have a new feature where you can set up newsletter swaps and things on there, as well as their promos that they already had. So that's like really easy if you're a little bit shy and you don't know other authors yet, and you're just getting into the sharing the platform sort of journey. And then Facebook group, I would say there's a lot of author groups on there where you can say, hey, I'm looking to collaborate with other people. Is anyone interested? That's another great space, as well as if you have an assistant. A lot of times assistants know other assistants, so we can even like help make connections for you that way.
yeah, and I do want to kind of move on to mindset in just a moment, but are there any kind of other tools and resources that you think are particularly useful for authors in this kind of marketing topic?
So, as far as content creation side of things, I would say Canva is an absolute must for just being able to quickly create things. If like a lot of times of clients that have other jobs and are really crunched for time, Canva is obviously budget friendly. If you're looking for time saving, and it's a little more costly, but I love BookBrush. It's like one click of a button, and it does kind of like, you can choose from flat lays, and it lets you do 3D mock-ups much easier than Canva does. So if you aren't one for like creating your own sort of graphics or using the templates in there, or sometimes people are like, I love Canva, and I went on and I spent 3 hours and I made 3 graphics because I was having so much fun, and I'm like, well, that's great, but like you probably have other things you could be doing with your time. So BookBrush can be like super fast and get the graphics out, and then scheduling them ahead is just huge for that. I do think BookFunnel is a great investment for building your newsletter. You can set up your reader magnet on there and have people sign. You can integrate it to go straight over to your newsletter through that. So to me, it's essential. Like, that is some of the best money you can send. And then when you're picking your newsletter platform, really be intentional about the features that you're looking for. There's a lot of different options, and people are like, whoa, where do I go? But like Flowdesk is great because you can have as many people for a flat fee. So it's great as you grow. It's more towards aesthetic, but not as many features. MailerLite is my favorite because it does have so many like polls and surveys and other things that you can do around that. But really just ask. People are willing to help you, and don't struggle alone.
Yeah, no, some actually tools I've never actually used before, and I'm thinking, well, actually, I think I might give that a go, because I'm a Canva girl. Like, I love Canva so much. I moved from Photoshop onto Canva, and I was like, my time, I've got so much of it now. But I might even try that, because just try something different. Might get some new inspiration. But let's talk about mindset. So where do you even begin with mindset? What do we mean by it?
So I think, and I don't know why this is the case, but so many authors come and they are very much like, either maybe a teacher told them that like you weren't that great at writing, but it's been a lifelong passion, and now they're like maybe middle-aged and they're getting their first book out, and they want to do it for them, and they've tackled that hurdle of writing the book, but the idea of marketing themselves is like terrifying. But they want to put it out there because they believe in their book and they want other people to read it. Or just like, I find I connect with a lot of moms on there, and it's like you feel like, I shouldn't be doing this. I have other things that I should be doing with my time. My family should come first. So like the idea of like carving out space for myself and being intentional, because marketing would have to be intentional, giving themselves the permission to do that is also terrifying. So people come from a lot of different spaces as to like, what's that scary thing we have to tackle for them to feel comfortable marketing themselves with their books. So I find it's not that difficult once you stop and take the time to like be comfortable with you. I think we talked about this earlier, like, acknowledge who you are, acknowledge all the awesomeness about yourself, and then you have to believe that the world needs your book. If you can't get to the point where you believe that your story needs to be read by other people, then we cannot market you. I mean, we can, but like, you need to believe that this book has to be read by other people, that it's going to truly make a difference in their life. And I don't care what the genre is, like, books are life-changing. I believe that with my whole heart and soul. Like, I hate in terms of like fluffy romance and all this stuff. Like, a romance can just hit you the right way. A sci-fi book can speak to somebody, and that character's arc they identify with, and it changes them as a person. Children's books, even like, you can read a kid's book and cry because like the little ducky is like had a bad day, and their bad day turned into a good day. So believe in your story and believe that people need your story. Once we kind of work through these mindset shifts of like, I totally owning the fact that I'm amazing, that I wrote this whole book, that the world needs this book, it really makes a shift as to then being proud about putting your marketing out there and having the confidence that you are an authority in the subject that you're talking about. Like, I spent, years of my life writing this book. I know a thing or two and I can talk about it. And it doesn't have to be like just about your book. Maybe you wrote historical fiction, and a client that I work with has a historical fiction book coming out. And it was about a rhino that she saw at the petting zoo during COVID when she took her daughter because they didn't have anywhere else to go. And like, she saw this rhino and was so inspired and found the story of a rhino that was taken to the UK and like on this world tour in the 1800s. And like, her whole book was born out of that. But she actually owns a wedding dress shop and wrote a book about a rhino, which you would think like totally
Uh-huh.
like does not connect, but like she's super passionate about that subject matter now. And just to kind of connect to marketing and mindset, she's so passionate about that project. And then we tie in her love of vintage fashion, her wedding dress shop, and she does lots of flat lays with her family's clothing that she has from like generations back, and highlights and promotes her book that way. So that's why that like connecting the who you are, she's a vintage fashion lover, with marketing for a historical romance, like marries together really well.
So for someone who's going, okay, so I need to go about a mindset change. I recognize that I'm probably not in the right frame of mind to then, go into promoting and marketing my book, which we understand, you're putting yourself out there. Um what's that first step? How do they get over that hurdle?
I think the most basic way to start is with an affirmation. Pick a few if you want, but if you're even terrified of that, just look in the mirror and say to yourself like 10 times over, I am a writer. I am an author, whatever way you identify. But I find even doing that for people and like saying it out loud to themselves is like an amazing first step to building their confidence. And I know it seems so simple, but it truly is like to look yourself in the eye and realize like what you've done, and you are this person that you've been, for a lot of people dreaming about being. Sometimes for decades you've dreamed about publishing a book and you've made it. And so if you can own that, you can own anything.
Absolutely. And I think that, there's a bit of a start as you mean to go on. Don't shy back because you feel like a little bit of imposter syndrome, like, oh, I'm not like all of these authors that have, thousands of followers. But, it's if you create good content is king, So if you start off as you mean to go on, push the imposter right back, and actually, it kind of shows a bit of confidence, I think, and people, viewers and followers are probably more likely to engage if they feel that, you're
Absolutely.
authentic and that you're confident in your brand.
Absolutely. And if you come out with that authority instead of like, oh, I really hate to ask you guys for anything, I have a book that's going live, people pick up on that. And then why am I excited to read that book that you are not even confident about pitching to me? It's just going to be, swipe and move on to the next thing. But if you can say, hey, I love reading rom-coms and it inspired me to write my own. I hope you guys check out this. Here's the tropes. I know everything about my book, to like that elevator pitch, market it well. It's not about you, it's about the product, and kind of, you feel confident in yourself to articulate that to people. That's the vibe they're going to pick up on.
Yeah, no, I really like that. And I suppose there's an element of this which is like sustaining the mindset as well, because you kind of go over that hurdle of, okay, I've people know it's there now, and now I've got to keep on with this mindset. I guess my question is, there are probably times when there are negative comments or reviews and things. So how do authors kind of sustain, the marketing and the mindset throughout the process?
Absolutely. Even when, if you're not indie publishing, like I had a client I was working with and she was querying. So we were building up her newsletter. In the meantime, she had 80 rejections. Like, that is crazy for anyone to take, So you have to, if you get the negative reviews that come in, that's one person's opinion. Even you could look at like the most masterfully done movies and there's a critic that didn't like that movie for whatever reason, and that's okay. That's their opinion. That's why I always try to write book reviews if I don't like it, to say this wasn't the book for me. I wasn't the right fit, because not everybody is the perfect fit for a book, and that doesn't make it a bad book. So um I would say a lot of people just try to put your book out into the world, and reviews don't even matter. Sometimes I'll have people that'll say, like, can you look through my reviews and pull the feedback that I could maybe improve from them, but I don't need to see the good, the bad, and the ugly of like what did people write. So that's kind of a way to like take a step back from it. It's like any type of art, it's subjective, and you really just kind of have to protect your mental health. I think when it comes to the marketing side of things, scheduling ahead of time is huge because I know for me, and I've been reading a lot lately on these, lots of research is being done around like social media managers and influencers and just the mental toll it takes on you creating and then having to look at feedback and how many likes did I get and I got thumbs down, and like it's a lot for people to handle. So I find the people that leave, if you're not having someone do your content for you, if you leave your posting up to every day and then, the evening comes, you're like, oh shoot, I need to post for today and I haven't done it yet. And then you're just throwing whatever out there. Number one, you're not being intentional about your marketing, but also you're not allowing for the days when you just need to take a breather from social media. So I find if you schedule ahead of time, it takes away the guilt on the days that you don't feel like posting, you don't feel like engaging, you need to spend family time, like whatever it is, you know that your business is still running without you having to show up every single day. And also it's
Yeah.
like your best tools to use. Like Meta will literally, like, they want you to succeed. So they'll tell you like post at this time because they want you to do, like when people always say like everything, the algorithm's against me, this is against me, like it's not against you. They want people to stay on the app because that's helping them. So like use those tools to your advantage.
Yeah, and I think the experience of social media has changed over the last year, but I think the point to be made is perhaps it's actually narrowing down your field. It's actually being more specific about who's seeing your content as opposed to, the people, the thousands of people you might have been reaching before who weren't going to buy your book. It's actually
Absolutely.
probably being even more specific and guiding your content to people that actually will more likely buy your book.
This is really interesting because I've seen this happen. I was talking about the fan fiction author that I have, and then I have another client who writes time travel historical romance. And her books are in 6 languages and have sold over 1 million copies. You would think like time travel like it's very like that's kind of narrowed down, like not everybody's into time travel. Like 1 million books is a lot of books, and it's both of them have been able to build through a lot of ads on top of their social media because those people are out there. It's targeting and finding those people. So like you said, like you're not going to appeal to every reader, so just go after the ones that are going to read what you're publishing.
Well, Melissa, I could speak to you for hours, I'm sure, because already we're nearly at 50 minutes. But if there was one thing that you could leave our listeners with today that they can take away and really think about and possibly even action in their own kind of process, whether it's marketing or mindset, what's the one thing that you would want them to take away from this discussion?
I would say don't be afraid to start and don't be afraid to fail, because those were the hardest lessons for me, because coming up with the ideas is easy, but starting them and seeing them through is hard. And then being okay if they fail and pivoting from there is so crucial to learn when you're expanding your business, but it will serve you so well as you continue to grow.
Yeah, fail fast and just recover. I think that's
Absolutely.
the philosophy that we run by anyway. And for people who are perhaps wanting to find out more about the work that you do and how you might be able to help them, where do they go to find that information?
Absolutely. So all social media platforms out there, you can find me all the same, The Literary Assistant. I have a website, literaryassistant.com. They can find me there. And DM me on any social media platforms as well is really easy. I'm always hanging out there. So happy to, I'm not one of those people that says don't DM. I'm more than comfortable talking with you there.
Awesome. And for anyone listening, we'll be providing those links in the podcast description and also on our webpage. But thank you so much for your time, Melissa. It's been absolutely wonderful. I really appreciate you sharing sort of your insights and your experience with us, and providing us with some actionable things that authors can really take and bring into their own process. So thank you. It's been wonderful to get to know you.
It was truly my pleasure to be here. Thanks for staying up late and hanging out with me.
It's honestly all my pleasure. Thank you so much.